Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Maya Tusi and this is your latest news update from British politics. More media attacks on Reform UK, some division and resignations. In this update, we're going to show you both sides of the argument. Of course, a statement from Reform UK, but also those who have now left the party, including obviously Ben Habib. It's important to obviously be objective in this because the mainstream media are taking advantage of this infighting and they continue to attack the whole of Reform UK. Obviously, the criticism that goes towards Nigel Farage's leadership, that's one thing, but the media are using that to attack the whole of the reform movement or any basically centre-right movement. So that's why we're going to be objective and show you both sides. And of course, get your reaction if you're watching this live. If you're not watching this live, leave a comment below. Just a reminder, I only have a few days left to take advantage of our special offer to celebrate the 750,000 subscribers. Use the promo code WIN50 to join 2CTV Plus on an annual subscription model. Go out to 2c.tv and check it out yourself. Now, let's talk about what's been going on because there were a number of resignations and some people have also been suspended. And the media attacks are one-sided. The defense from Reform UK is also one-sided, which is kind of fascinating. As I said, some people have resigned, some people have been kicked out. The media is only talking about resignations. Reform UK is only talking about the suspensions. So we're going to be here to actually talk about both. So first things first, let's see what Reform UK are actually talking about. Also, there people in the live chat are already talking about the game which is ongoing. I literally have that second screen. Arsenal Man United is also going. If I start screaming in the middle of the live stream, it's because of the game. Let's talk about Zia Youssef, the chairman of Reform UK. He responded to a Guardian article that talked about dozens of Reform UK councillors and members have resigned. Zia said this is dishonest from The Guardian. They failed to publish Nigel Farage's full statement to them. The leader of this group of councillors was suspended weeks ago by Reform for nominating candidates that failed vetting, fraudulently nominating candidates with an invalid DNO certificate. As a result, several of these councillors are illegitimate and new elections must be held. Reform stands for the highest standards in public life and those who commit fraud will always be expelled. So the interesting thing about this is about one person, that they're leader of the group, not necessarily about all of the others, right? So, but the reaction was fascinating. So Ben Habib talked about one of them, obviously Alex. Ben Habib said, Alex, along with so many, put the party on the map. I've got to know him. He does what he does for community and country. The movement, which put 5 MPs in Parliament, was created by people like Alex. There is no benefit for Reform in turning its back on those that built it. You talk of professionalizing the party. The whole point about the movement is that it's about people, not professionals. Alex loves his country. I mean, there is a point to be made because obviously since Zia Youssef joined Reform UK from the Conservative Party, he said he wants to turn the Reform UK into the Tory Party. He said he wants to professionalize it, have a professional wing of the party, central office and all that stuff, which kind of goes against what even conservatism used to be in this country. And Robert Peel and all the others, the idea was not supposed to centralize political parties, but now all the parties are becoming centralized. Labour, the Labour HQ, you got Tory HQ, CCHQ, Lib Dem headquarters, all of them, and now Reform UK as well. We do have obviously full reaction from Ben Habib hitting back at Zia Youssef and Nigel Farage for the way they've been handling this and the resignation. Let's go to Ben.
There has been a spate of resignations from Reform UK over the last 10 days. It started with Andrew Southall, who stood in Dudley for Reform UK in the general election, came very close to winning that seat. And the reason Andrew resigned was because Reform UK took on, without discussion with him, without forewarning, his arch opponent, a chap called Marco Longhi, took him on as a member of Reform UK. During the general election, Marco Longhi was very personally attacking Andrew Southall and actually had denounced Reform UK in the strongest of terms, and yet a few months later, Reform UK took him on and didn't even consult Andrew in their decision. So a young, aspiring, exactly the kind of guy that I would have thought Reform UK would want as one of its candidates, resigned. There wasn't a word out of the leadership of Reform UK regretting his resignation. Then we had the resignation of Howard Cox, who felt that Reform UK wasn't prepared to allow him to speak his mind, which is, I think, correct, that they weren't allowed to, they weren't prepared to allow him to speak his mind, but wholly wrong of Reform UK to not allow him to do so. At the heart of democracy is free speech. We hear that from all proponents of democratic values, including all the time from Reform UK. But if anyone in Reform UK should dare to speak their mind, it seems that the leadership is extremely prickly about it, including any criticisms that might be made of the party. In fact, they're most prickly about criticisms made of the party. And when Howard Cox left the party, instead of thanking Howard for having stood as the mayoral candidate and done extremely well, as far as I'm concerned, in that election, having stood in Dover in the general election and doing, again, I think he came in second place in Dover from a pretty standing start. Instead of thanking Howard for his commitment, Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, got on the airwaves and denounced him. And then 10 Reform UK councillors in Derbyshire resigned yesterday, citing Nigel Farage's leadership as being one of the reasons for their resignation. And again, instead of wishing them well and thanking them for all that they've done, including a gentleman called Alex Stevenson, who, by the way, has been in and out of hospital over the last couple of days with his own personal issues. Instead of thanking them, they were again denounced. Reform UK was straight out on the front foot, saying actually Alex Stevenson had been suspended. He's not really part of the party. He's someone we don't want to have anything to do with. These are 10 councillors from Derbyshire, people who've won seats in the name of Reform UK, people who've put Reform UK on the map. If it wasn't for Andrew Southall, people like Andrew Southall, Howard Cox, these 10 councillors, and dare I say it myself, Reform UK wouldn't have got anywhere near getting the 5 parliamentary seats that it actually got in the general election. Before Nigel Farage came back, it was Richard Tice, myself, and the people that I've mentioned, plus a whole host of other grassroots members who took Reform UK from polling nothing in the polls to polling 16% when Nigel decided to come back as leader. And I think it is wholly awful that Reform UK hasn't got the presence, the kindness, the recognition of the efforts made of these people. As far as I'm concerned, Nigel has been on the airwaves denouncing me repeatedly over the last week. I haven't had a go at Nigel at all. It's not about individuals. It's not about whether you like someone or not. Whether, as Nigel says, I'm too big for my boots, or that it's good riddance to Ben Habib, or that I'm bitter and twisted, all of which is untrue. What it's about is the movement created in this country that generated the 4 million votes, and the creation of that movement by the kinds of people that I've been referencing. And I just want to remind the leadership of Reform UK that it is not the movement or the grassroots of Reform UK that are indebted to Nigel and the leadership. It is the leadership that is indebted to the grassroots and the movement. They are the people who've put Reform UK where it is. And it seems to me that Reform UK is turning its back on the people. It's got to stop. If Reform UK wants to stand a chance of winning anything in the 2029 general election, it's got to start supporting its grassroots, supporting the people who fought tirelessly to put it where it is, and most importantly, supporting the movement that's been created by those people. Please get a grip.
So we showed you guys, as I said, that both sides of the argument, what Reform UK and Zio Youssef as chairman has said, and obviously also this side of the argument in terms of Ben Habib and those who have left. There seems to be a lot of clashes of personalities again. A lot of the Faragists will obviously blindly just support Nigel, and basically anybody who criticizes their leadership, they will attack the person, like Ben or anybody else. Even if you criticize the leadership, they would say you are criticizing the reform movement, which is kind of ironic because some of the people who are criticizing the leadership are from the Reform UK movement. A lot of people want reform. They want to support reform. They will vote for them. Obviously, I voted for them in the recent election. The party is one thing, but individuals is another thing. But there's also, to be objective, there's a point to be made, because Ben mentioned that it was because of the grassroots and everybody else who've been working all these years that Reform got 5 MPs. There is definitely a point to be made that yes, the infrastructure, those who've been working to prepare the party. But to be objective, the return of Nigel Farage was one of the main reasons that the party got the momentum in the election in July and managed to get those seats. And then obviously the return of Farage is also one of the reasons that Reform managed to get a lot of new members. So you can see both sides of the arguments, but actually it's important to see what you guys think in the live chat. So we got Sheila, super chats, thank you, saying Nigel Farage is a hypocrite. He doesn't even adhere to his own membership criteria. He was not only a member of UKIP, he was bloody leader. That's a good point, because obviously he doesn't want anyone who are part of the so-called radical parties like UKIP to join. Desman says, I still don't know how to leave Reform. I have been asked if I want to stand as a candidate. Stop the lies. What? So wait, you wanted to leave, but they asked you to be a candidate? That's very confusing. I don't know what's going on. Obviously, it's a subscription right now, so you can just cancel your subscription if those who want to leave, because there's no membership yet. That comes later. Stuart Grimes says, Ben Habib needs to be the new leader. Useless Youssef must go too. We don't want rich Muslims in the party. We got Reload 50 saying, without Nigel, Reform dies. See, and it's not a good thing. There's a point to be made again, because, it's Nigel leading it right now. That's professionalizing and all the new members. Obviously, a lot of the original Reform UK members have left, some of them, but they are getting a lot of the mainstream Tory members joining Reform. So the membership is still going up. There's other Tory members joining, and more moderate, obviously centre-right people joining. But obviously the infighting doesn't help. But secondly, second point is, yes, it's thanks to obviously Nigel, all this stuff. But it doesn't help if one political party is completely dependent on one person leading it. Because if something happens to that one person, what does that mean? As the Reload 50 says, does that mean the party dies? The party needs to be above any party leader. That's the sort of movement that you want to create. And yes, Reform UK is still a new party, so it will be hard for them not to be dependent on a key leadership figure like Nigel Farage. So it is a difficult thing. But they do need to move quickly, so that if Reform wants to stay as a movement, as a party, because I think that's a priority, so that they could just live and thrive without needing one or two individuals. So that if Nigel Farage retires or whatever happens, then Reform can continue. Right now, it seemed like, again, a one-man band, even though they say they're not a one-man band. Because, as I said, if you criticize Nigel Farage, they say you hate Reform. It shouldn't be the case, because you can still support Reform while criticizing the leadership. It's the same with the Tories. They criticized Rishi Sunak, but they were still Tory. Same thing when David Cameron was Prime Minister or Theresa May was Prime Minister. People said, we don't like Theresa. Theresa needs to go. But doesn't mean they were not Tories. They stayed and they voted for a new leader, Boris Johnson. You have to get to a point where the party is above any individual. Superchat from Aaron saying Farage is repeating what he did to UKIP. He wanted a dictatorship and a brainwashed following. If he can't have it his way, he'll destroy it. Join UKIP. What else do we have? Farage is a name people know. If you don't use social media, you won't know who the others are. True. Once Reform get good traction, then changes can happen. I agree. Ben, please stop with all of this. June Slater is right. The thing is, all the points are great, absolutely spot on. Reform still, obviously, they need the momentum, they need to become better. And then once the party is above any individual, then you can say people now know all these other people, the grassroots, the chairman, the MPs. That is a good point. But if Farage supporters and Reform UK supporters want to like attack Ben Habib, for example, or Tommy Robinson, I mean, Tommy's not even actually saying anything, but you know, anybody else who's criticizing the leadership, like Elon Musk, for the sake of infighting, don't do infighting, right? That's what you're saying. Ben, stop it. But their suggestion should also go to the leadership of Reform, because the leadership of Reform, the top of Reform UK, they're also doing the same thing. They're also attacking individuals. And at times, they're getting accused of doing slander. That if people are going to suggest people should stop doing infighting in this political party and the ones outside the political party, then the infighting should stop from all sides. So the Ben Habib supporters would say Nigel's side are attacking us. The Farage supporters saying Ben Habib is attacking us. But everyone's attacking everybody. So it doesn't help. But scrutiny is important. And that's my job. Scrutiny is always important. And if there is a fight somewhere going on, we have to report it. You can't deny it. You can't do a cover-up. You can't just say, no, nothing's happening. Everything's perfect. Everybody at Reform UK is happy. Everybody at the Tory party is happy. No. You have to put a light and actually put it in the spotlight, because that's how political parties and politicians will become better. They need to feel the pressure. They need to know that people understand what's going on inside the parties. Craig says, stop S-staring and get behind Reform. See, that's a problem again. The Faragists would say this. They'd rather if you don't talk about it. There is no other choice. Reform were doing nothing before Nigel came back. So this is the thing again. This again sounds like what I said. If you criticize one person in Reform, you get accused of hating all Reform people and the whole party. It shouldn't be the case. And Craig is right that once Nigel came back, the momentum came back. So I give him that, absolutely. But that's not a good thing. It's definitely not a good thing. It shouldn't be. And the previous guy was also right. Give him time, momentum, and then more people would know who Reform UK are and the other members. But that transition should happen soon, so that if you criticize a leader, you don't get accused of hating the whole party. So a lot of people still voted for Reform and are criticizing the leadership. And the Viking says, I'm waiting for Diane Abbott to join Reform. Dave on Toast says Farage is friendly with Trump, and at this time, that's not a bad thing. I don't think we have time to search for a leader. Also, you can't get rid of the leader because their constitution hasn't changed yet. That ticks all the boxes. I agree. No one is perfect, and Jesus left a long time ago. Yeah, I mean, that's the other good point to be made, because unless the people who are inside Reform and are attacking Nigel Farage's leadership, unless they have an actual alternative plan, even if they could change the leadership, then, you know, there's a difficult conversation to be had if you are still inside Reform UK. Jenny says, I support Reform, but Nigel should stop the attacks. It shows bad judgment, in my opinion. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people still say they support Reform, but criticizing the leadership, then they get ousted. Another person says, Rodney says, Nigel is the problem, not Reform. So yeah, what I kind of, the vibe I've got over the last few days and weeks seems to be, there's a lot of people who do think that way as well. But you do get attacked, Rodney, by the Faragists, saying that, no, if you criticize our dear leader, that means you hate Reform and you're going to basically destroy the whole party. Delivering Liberty says, more clickbait fake news from Tusi, considering we actually showed you the statements from both the chairman of Reform UK, Zio Youssef, and obviously the other side, Ben Habib. I'm not really sure how you can accuse us of fake news. The infighting is happening literally out in public on social media and on mainstream media. Obviously, those who want to be in denial, I can't really help with them. They need better therapists, and I can't really recommend therapists. That's not my job. Make sure to go to your local NHS clinic. Let's go back to some super chats as well. I think, no, I did read that. Let's go back to some non-super chats. Noddy says, Farage is more of the same. He has sold his soul to the Star Malayas. Dr. Five says, Farage is the problem. And Paul says, strange, the more popular reform become, the more Quisling appear. So, again, objectively, in defense of reform, as you get bigger and become a threat, you also get a lot of attacks from the mainstream media. So a lot of this stuff that's been going on, the mainstream media is focusing a lot on Reform UK. And it makes sense because they see it as a threat. It's the job of the party, any party, to don't make themselves a big target. In terms of, you will always be a target, but don't give them ammunition. So make sure you have a good leadership, make sure you have harmony. And it's not easy. I can sit here and judge people on parties saying, come on, run your party. But I won't be able to run a party. I'm not going to be a good manager or a leader. But those who actually those who claim that they could actually manage parties, they have to do a better job. And if they fail, or infighting happens, or leaks happen, or gossip happens, then they can't blame people for talking about it. You don't do the fight in public. But again, these things happen. It's absolutely normal. What you're saying is normal. Any big party will get a lot of criticisms. And basically their fights will become more public. Like right now, as we speak right now, there might be a meeting with UKIP and one or two people might have a fight, theoretically. But we won't really know about it because right now they're still a smaller party and they're not really currently a threat to Westminster right now as we speak. They don't have an MP. So there's not much conversation about it. Unless somebody texts me right now about that fight going on inside a UK meeting or any other party, SDP. But obviously, Reform UK, I think for a lot of their supporters, they haven't realised you are now a big party. The same way as the Tories and Labour, if they have an infighting, it will be out in the open. Same thing's going to happen to you guys now. So if a journalist or a reporter is talking about it, it's not the fault of the journalist. You guys did the infighting, and the journalist is talking about it. Now, going back to some super chats, Sheila also says, people only know Farage because he has been around the political circuit for years. It took him 8 times to become an MP. Hardly successful. Vinny says, thank you for the email. Very altruistic of you. Thank you very much, Vinny. And Peter as well. Well, this was the latest, obviously. As I said, I showed you both sides so you can make up your own mind. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maya Tusi, and we are the media.